I like to think none of this would have worked out if you weren't, at heart, just a little bit a good person.
And if you weren't, deep down, just enough of a bastard to be worth knowing. Cheers. To the world.
To the world.
I started this video when the writers and actors strike were still ongoing, so the video began with me talking about it and supporting all the writers and actors in their striking and pursuit to get better rights, privacy, and payment in the entertainment industry. Since then, the writers' strike has ended, getting the deals and results that they deserved. And later on, the actors' strike also ended and got some good deals, but not as good as the writers. I still wanted to mention it here, as obviously I am talking about a TV show produced and distributed by Prime Video, which is under Amazon, a massive company that would have been affected by the strikes, rightfully so, and that a large amount of the people working on and behind the camera would have been part of the Writers and Actors Guild and would have participated in the strikes. Whilst the strikes are over now, it doesn't mean all has been settled, and please support any other creative unions and guilds that decide to strike for better pay and treatment in the future of the entertainment industry. So guess what I'm fixated on right now? Yes, I really need to talk about the last scene in Good Omens Season 2, as it's one of the most harrowing and heartbreaking yet brilliant scenes I've seen in a while. It makes me more excited and longing for hopefully Season 3 of the show. Compared to Season 1, Season 2 focuses a lot more on character development and the stakes are definitely lower in terms of plot, but it's still as fun and as absurd and as magical. I would say that Season 2 acts as a breathing point between Season 1 and potentially Season 3, giving a break between world-ending plots, maybe, who knows, depending on what Season 3 is, and it focusing a lot more on Aziraphale and Crowley, their relationship throughout time, and how they function in the human world. Whilst Aziraphale and Crowley were a massive part of the first season, they really become the main characters in Season 2. We see more flashbacks of their time together with the mini-sodes, which expands their relationship even more, so we understand their 6,000 years together and how long it's actually been. Those two and their relationships are the focus of Season 2, and that's why their character development is so important and why Season 2 ends the way it does. But before we start, let me just explain and catch you up on everything. Big fucking spoiler ahead for the whole damn show. This recap is going to be absolutely unhinged, chaotic, and a very brief recap as well, so sorry in advance. Anyway, as you know, Good Omens is a book co-written by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman about the oncoming apocalypse. Satan's son is brought into the human world, and in 11 years he will bring about the end of the world so that heaven and hell can basically fight again. The book is also a must read, but I will definitely be mainly focusing more on the series, but the book is still just as important. The angel Aziraphale and the demon Crowley have been on Earth since the beginning at the Garden of Eden, about 6,000 years ago. And throughout those 6,000 years, up to the modern day, they have run into each other many times and realised that the good and bad that they do kind of cancel each other out and don't really affect anything. So they start avoiding tasks they are asked to do by their representative head offices, Heaven and Hell, and over many years create an unlikely relationship which grows even more over the centuries. Crowley is then tasked to deliver the Antichrist, Satan's son, but it ends up with the wrong family, so already the plans around it have gone absolutely wrong. And on the same night, Crowley and Aziraphale decide to get pretty fucking drunk due to only having 11 years left on Earth to enjoy everything. You see, Crowley and especially Aziraphale have taken a massive liking to Earth, with its food, clothes, musics, the Bentley, etc, etc, and the idea of it all ending and never seeing their favourite things again just doesn't really excite them that much. So they decide to stop the end of the world, as you do, against the will of Heaven and Hell as well. They do it with the help of witches, witch hunters, girl bosses, Jack Whitehall, children, and the Antichrist and his dog, called Dog, winning a shouting match against Satan and the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Believe me, it sounds weird, but it is absolutely great. The whole journey to get there is absolutely absurd, fun, and half the time very just unserious. But in the end, they narrowly avoid the consequences of disobeying the high orders from Heaven and Hell, and Aziraphale and Crowley end off the series by dining at the Ritz together. The book and show end basically in the same way, and there was never to be expected a second series as there wasn't a sequel to the book. Neil did say that he and Terry had ideas for a sequel, but as mentioned, most of these ideas will probably be part of Season 3 if there is a Season 3. Now let's get into Season 2, obviously. Quiet, gentle and romantic is what Mr. Neil Gaiman described the season before it was released, and for the most part, it was accurate. Naked and not afraid, a memory lost Gabriel, the Archangel Gabriel, turns up at Aziraphale's bookshop looking for help, as unbeknownst to both of them, he has been kicked out of the Supreme Archangel position. Him and Crowley, to Crowley's misfortune, decide to look after Gabriel, or now known as Jim, and keep him safe from both heaven and hell. They miracle like a safety net over Jim to stop him being recognised by either heaven or hell. Problem is that heaven detected the absolutely massive power of the miracle and stormed the bookshop to find Gabriel, as they assume Aziraphale is hiding him. I mean, they're right, but because the miracle worked, they don't see Gabriel, they just see Jim as a random bookshop assistant and not as Gabriel. But Aziraphale covers the real reason for the miracle by saying that he's helping Maggie, who owns a record store across the street, and Nina, the owner of the cafe Give Me Coffee, Give Me Death, basically fall in love with each other. Now, saying that, Aziraphale, with the help of Crowley of course, have to make a plan to actually make Maggie and Nina fall in love together as hijinks ensue. Crowley takes turn by making it rain heavily to create like a romantic scene like in the movies, which doesn't work. It's then Aziraphale's turn to get Maggie and Nina to fall in love together by using the monthly shopkeeper association meeting as an excuse to hold a Pride and Prejudice-esque ball to get those two together. At some point, Aziraphale also goes to Edinburgh to investigate a pub and its jukebox, which gives more clues about Gabriel. During all of this, Shax, one of the higher-ups from Hell, has been not so secretly spying on Crowley, hounding him about where Gabriel is, and determines to Beelzebub that he's in the bookshop, and to take a massive army of demons to storm the bookshop and to take Gabriel. She then stands outside the bookshop with a massive army, 70 or so, demons. More hijinks happen. Maggie, Nina and Aziraphale help defend the shop whilst Crowley sneaks into heaven with Angel Muriel, against her will really, to find out what happened to Gabriel. Turns out that he was kicked out of his old position because he opposed the idea of another apocalypse. Aziraphale beats the demons by blowing up his halo and kind of causing a war. Adversaries of heaven and hell show up to the bookshop to fight, where we find out about where Gabriel's memories are, which are in a fly gifted by Beelzebub. Turns out they've also been on talking terms for years and soon started a relationship, and now they decided to go off together and leave heaven and hell behind, to the shock of many. After no war was actually declared, the Metatron, who is the highest in command only after God themselves, comes in and tells off the other angels, including the archangels, and asks to talk to Aziraphale about something. Whilst that goes on, Maggie and Nina go to tell Crowley that he and Aziraphale never get to talk properly about their feelings to one another, and need to before it's too late, and also rightfully tell them and Aziraphale off for kind of forcing them together when they weren't ready. Maggie and Nina do like each other in that way, but Nina literally just got broke up with by her ex-partner, and they're not ready to be in a relationship yet, but when they are, they will give it a try, and that's just in general an important thing to know, and it's great. And that brings us to this scene. Like I said, Aziraphale and Crowley have known each other for more than 6,000 years. It's debated and it's speculated that they knew each other for over 5.5 million years, or seemingly knew each other before the Garden Eden and before Crowley fell. But at the start of season 2, when they're both still angels, Aziraphale and Crowley clearly seem to meet for the first time. So I'm still going with the idea that they've known each other for maybe 6,000, 7,000, maybe a bit more years, but I don't think they've known each other for like millions of years. If there is evidence saying otherwise, though, that's clear, please let me know. Throughout all the flashbacks, we see their relationship blossom, and the times they meet getting short in between. I love the flashback scenes so much, as they're pretty much low-stake little whimsical adventures. Despite being opposites, they bounce off each other so well. And yes, I am 100% looking at their relationship as romantic many people have, and the moments they have together show you why their romance is also just beautiful, even if they don't realise it or haven't come to terms with it yet. And I think that's why it's the perfect time to break down that final scene. Before we really get started, I just want to make it clear that this is all just my own interpretation and only what I think. I'm literally just going to go through this scene and pause and explain what's going on and add some of my thoughts behind the characters' actions and ideals. There's probably a lot of stuff I'm going to miss and not explain that well, but at the same time, that's the fun thing about talking about this. It's speculative and interpreting a piece of media that we all love and respect, and all I want for this is to people to understand how much I love this season and respect Neil Gaiman's writing and ideas, and respect other people's ideas, even if they differ to mine. It's going to be very rambly, and it's probably going to repeat a lot, but it's going to be a lot of fun. first thing to establish is understanding the character's headspace as much as possible when going to the scene. Crowley has probably been waiting a long time to talk to Aziraphale about this, or at least quite a long time, so the anxiety is through the roof, and this is definitely not their comfort zone. Aziraphale, on the other hand, is not expecting this to happen right now from Crowley, and is going to this overjoyed to tell Crowley about this opportunity they have. But both of them have different ideals going into this, which they both think will benefit the both of them, and that's why they have to say it now. The scene starts with Aziraphale entering the bookstore. Whilst Maggie and Nina leave, looking at Aziraphale, they say,
"Which is going? I'm sure you two have a lot to say."
Telling Aziraphale that Crowley also has something big to say to them, but that probably doesn't cross their mind much, as the news they're about to tell Crowley is the most important news in their entire existence at this point. Taking a deep breath, and still smiling, but also looking nervous, or trying not to burst from excitement, Aziraphale looks towards Crowley. I love how Maggie and Nina are the ones to get them to properly talk, but also don't care that they're literal angels and demons and are part of this other world, but the only thing they care about is that they talk about their feelings for each other. And I really hope we see more of them in season 3. The camera pans from Nina and Maggie to the Metatron standing and looking their direction towards a bookshop as well. To me, he is looking very suspicious, like there is some ulterior motive that we don't know about. The Metatron then goes to talk to Muriel, who is sitting outside of the cafe, and explains that she's reading a book. The Metatron seems to be happy at what Muriel is doing and seems to like them as well, which explains his reasoning later for putting Muriel in charge of the bookstore, which I love so much, by the way. The Metatron then turns back to watch the bookshop again, looking suspiciously at it, but his expression doesn't give too much away either, which I think is intentional. I don't think we'll find out any more about his true intentions until the next season. It then cuts back to the bookshop, straight to Crowley, who starts speaking first.
Look, I suppose, I've got something to say. I know we ought to be talking about it. It's probably best if I start off doing all the talking, you do all the listening, because I don't start talking now, I won't ever start talking, right? Yes, so...
They ramble a lot, not surprising because this is their first time. They've been very emotionally vulnerable to Aziraphale like this. They also say how Aziraphale needs to listen and how Crowley needs to talk first, as if they don't now, they probably won't ever. Also kind of showing how Aziraphale does a lot of the talking in the relationship. And as Crowley is about to start properly, Aziraphale proves their point by stopping Crowley and is absolutely endearing by saying that "hold that thought" is a lovely human expression.
What's that lovely human expression? Oh yes, hold that thought.
And Crowley's face after that is just a mixture of tiredness and annoyance. They need to say this to Aziraphale before they don't ever have the courage to say it ever. But Crowley also loves Aziraphale and can't help themselves but let Aziraphale talk first, as that's something they find probably very endearing about them. You can tell that Aziraphale is also bursting with excitement, but is also incredibly overwhelmed as well with all this info coming to them. Aziraphale is twitching and fiddling with her hands and stuttering and keeps stopping her sentences and doesn't really know where to start. To the audience, we're excited to see what Aziraphale has to say, but then we also just want Crowley to have their time as well, as the constant medium shots back to him and then back to Aziraphale throughout, focusing on their reactions to each other, shows how impatient Crowley is and how tired they are. The scene is already making the audience feel split and torn between the two, and that's going to continue even more. Aziraphale then gets explaining their conversation with Metatron, saying that with Gabriel obviously not being the Supreme Archangel anymore, there is now a free space for someone new to become that role. The Metatron asks Aziraphale who it should be and scoffs at Aziraphale's response, saying Michael.
And I said,
Michael? Oh, don't be silly. There's only one candidate who makes even the slightest bit of sense.
That line cuts to Aziraphale's reaction, who seems to be absolutely clueless to who the Metatron is talking about. Then it drops.
And that's you.
The Metatron wants Aziraphale to be the new Supreme Archangel, which Aziraphale is taken back by, not expecting it at all. Obviously, looking at Aziraphale's face when they tell this to Crowley, he's out of breath and he's pausing, all smiling, excited. They seem to be very happy by this proposition the more they think about it. The reasons why the Metatron thinks Aziraphale should be it plays right up to what Aziraphale is looking for. Approval for his work on Earth by heaven, and the Metatron is feeding into that approval right away. It's interesting to note that Aziraphale's first reaction to it is that they don't want to go back to heaven.
I don't want to go back to heaven. Where would I get my coffee?
Aziraphale is basically lightly rejecting the Metatron's offer as they prefer being on Earth than heaven. Aziraphale's main point is talking about where they would get their coffee, basically saying, I don't want to leave all these amazing things that humans do and create that I love as well. I love my time on Earth. I have this amazing bookshop and amazing things to do. I don't want to leave that now. The Metatron again plays into that by saying that with the power Aziraphale would have as Supreme Archangel.
You know, as Supreme Archangel, you would be able to decide who to work with.
But the main thing is who Aziraphale could work with. And he feeds into Aziraphale's mind even more by saying that,
yeah, I've been looking back over a number of your previous exploits, and I see that in quite a few of them you formed a de facto partnership with the demon Crowley. Now, if you wanted to work with him again, that might be considered irregular, but it would certainly be within your jurisdiction to restore your friend, Crowley, to full angelic status.
With their new role and power, that Aziraphale can appoint Crowley back as an angel and that they can work together. Aziraphale's face doesn't reveal that much when he's shown a scene to the Metatron, as I think they're still trying to process everything the Metatron has just said, basically giving Aziraphale the approval and prime position as well as working with a person they care about the most. It cuts back to Crowley, who in a low tone spits.
He said what?
Like he's hurt or angry at even the thought of this ever happening, or in disbelief that he could ever become an angel again. And Aziraphale says in such a relieved and thrilled tone that they could appoint Crowley as an angel again.
He said I could appoint you to be an angel. You could come back to heaven and everything like the old times, only even nicer.
Aziraphale just sounds so happy, like everything in the world is finally settling in place for them. But really, the most important part for Aziraphale is that they think they're going to make Crowley feel happy again. All Aziraphale sees right now is the angel Crowley, and they had never seen another angel so happy. Aziraphale wants to see Crowley that happy again, and that joyous over the universe again, and they feel like they can do that with this opportunity. In this moment, Aziraphale's biggest motive and happiness is of the thought of Crowley being happy again, together with them up in heaven. But obviously we can tell with Crowley's reaction that they're not on the same page.
Right. And you told him just where he could stick it then?
Their reaction literally tells Metatron to stick it, so it instantly confirms that Crowley is not behind this idea at all. There is still a level of shock on his face. I think shocked to see that Aziraphale is still seemingly sucking up to heaven, but I think Crowley also kind of knew that could still be the case. Aziraphale, still smiling and completely oblivious, doesn't understand what Crowley means, and was probably thinking the best for Crowley and didn't expect that kind of response. Crowley knows that they not only need to confess their love right now for Aziraphale, but now convince them to not take the job up in heaven.
Oh, we're better than that. You're better than that, Angel. You don't need them. I certainly don't need them.
It's heartbreaking, and everything that we assumed Aziraphale had learnt about heaven and hell, and Crowley not being on his side anymore, doesn't seem to be the case, as we thought Aziraphale would have learnt by now. Crowley continues ranting, saying anything to convince Aziraphale. You don't need them. I rejected hell and heaven rejected me in the first place. We're on our own. To Crowley, because he has seen so much on both sides, stuff that Aziraphale doesn't know, but again more on that later. Crowley knows that being on one side isn't any good. And then Aziraphale says something that kind of confuses me. Well, it confused me at first.
Well, obviously you said no to hell. You're the bad guys. But heaven, well, it's the side of truth, of light, of good.
Aziraphale, despite knowing that heaven has grey areas, still returns to the notion of hell is bad and heaven are the good guys. They even clump Crowley in with hell and the bad guys by just saying you're the bad guys, even though throughout both seasons Aziraphale wants to convince and tell Crowley that he is a good and kind and nice person. It can either just be Aziraphale reverting back to what he's been told and taught since the start of everything, just because he's not thinking properly and he's adamant in sticking with his argument because he's stubborn. happen, but also in emotional moments you say stuff that you don't mean because you don't think about what you're saying. But it still feels weird, and I can't put my finger on why it feels off. Everything they thought Aziraphale was or had grown into all these centuries with working together seems to be completely gone from them. I think Crowley is as confused as us. They even say to Aziraphale straight that
when heaven ends life here on Earth, it'll be just as dead as if hell ended it. Tell me you said no. Tell me you said no.
these two sides are basically the same. They don't care about the collateral damage or what is lost. They just want the victory and power. This feels like Crowley now begging and pleading because they feel like they're losing Aziraphale now and everything they had planned is all going down the drain. I think there was part of Crowley that knew Aziraphale would still have part of this mindset, but not to this extent. But then again, Crowley doesn't know Aziraphale's intentions for doing this was to make sure they're safe and happy again. Remember, the reason why Aziraphale said yes to this job is that because he could work with Crowley. Crowley inches closer and says, "Tell me you said no." It really sounds desperate now, like they're trying to speak it into existence, but already knows that Aziraphale probably already agreed to it. Don't think we've ever seen Crowley in more distress or anguish, other than when he thought Aziraphale had died in the library fire in season 1. This time they're just losing Aziraphale in a more painful way. Aziraphale tries to explain themselves to Crowley again in their decision, saying if they were in charge, they could make a difference.
If I'm in charge, I can make a difference.
This now suggests that Aziraphale knows that heaven isn't perfect at all. Maybe referring to the angels, maybe referring to the other angels not being very nice to them and Crowley, but that they still feel some sort of connection and obligation there as well. Heaven is part of Aziraphale's identity, and they've always been looking for heaven's approval and validation. Honestly, this point about Aziraphale wanting validation from heaven, I will definitely talk about more later. Again, put a pin in it. There's a lot of moments which are going to be explained later or links to some theories. This part is just more of like a surface level analysis with little added context. Crowley then does a dramatic walk in a little circle while scrolling, but also now realising the position they are in. Crowley really only has one more chance to convince Aziraphale to stay with them.
Oh God, right, okay. Right, I didn't get a chance to say what I was going to say. I think I'd better say it now. Right, okay, yes.
And that is to confess their feelings. They just wish it wasn't under this circumstance. Aziraphale still looks just as confused and even scared when Crowley starts speaking. Part of me thinks they're just as confused and hurt that Crowley doesn't want to go to heaven with them. Part of me also feels that they maybe know that Crowley is also about to confess. Crowley takes one big breath just before they start. Then they just blurt out,
"We've known each other a long time."
And then just keeps going from there.
We've been on this planet for a long time. I mean, you and me.
Crowley makes it incredibly clear that it's just been them and it's all about them as well. Whilst they've known other angels or demons for all those millennia, their relationship and partnership and time spent on Earth is theirs only and nothing else can come close.
I could always rely on you.
Is spoken in a way that Crowley has been waiting to say for a long time. Like if they were ever going to confess, this was something they would have always said to Aziraphale. Crowley explicitly saying that they could always trust Aziraphale and always call on them to have that understanding, and knowing that they could only rely on Aziraphale is a comforting feeling that Crowley probably would have never had ever with someone else if it weren't for Aziraphale. That line means so much coming from Crowley. They then continue saying,
"You could always rely on me. We're a team, a group of the two of us."
Crowley again knows that their trust and reliability is a two-way thing, and no matter what they say on whose side they say they're on or what heaven and hell are asking them to do, or no matter what morals or intentions they have, they will always help each other out because they're a team, they're a duo, they're their own side. The amount of times both Aziraphale and Crowley have gone against their higher-ups and orders just to help each other or to run off and have some fun or go on weird little adventures on their own terms, doing their own things with each other, is more than we've probably ever seen, and what they could probably admit. They are a team of the two of them, not on a team of heaven or hell, just them. The camera then cuts back to Aziraphale slightly off centre, focusing on his face and reactions as Crowley says,
"And we've spent our existence pretending that we aren't."
This is interesting, as I feel like you can read this very differently. It could be the end of what Crowley just said, that they've spent their entire existence pretending that they're not a team or duo when they are. Or it's actually the start of a new point, with Crowley cutting themselves off at the end, and we spent our existence pretending that we aren't. Aren't what? Aren't what? Could Crowley be cutting themselves off because they're about to say, be pretending that we aren't in love, or aren't an item, or aren't a thing? I don't know, but I think either way could make sense.
And I would like to spend.
The more Crowley lingers on their sentences, the more frustrating it gets, because we know what they want to say. We know they want to spend the rest of their life and existence with Aziraphale and run off together and just have each other's company. It's so beautiful but heartbreaking. But with everything that's happening and with the way Crowley is acting, it feels like it's too late, and no matter what, Aziraphale's already made their mind up. Then Crowley mentions,
I mean, if Gabriel and Beelzebub can do it, go off together, then we can.
it's one of my favourite parts, as it also adds to the scene beforehand where Gabriel and Beelzebub's love for each other is revealed and they run off together. It's really funny because they are basically a crack ship during the first season, which is a relationship between two characters who only meet in like very few or one scene or even not at all, but people still create a ship out of it for the absolute fun and absurdity of it. Gabriel and Beelzebub, also known as Ineffable Bureaucracy, were one of the big crack ships as they only met once in the final episode of season 1. Just imagine telling a Good Omens fan before season 2 came out that an angel and demon will fall in love and run off together at the end of season 2, saying,
I just found something that mattered more to me than choosing sides.
Beelzebub is my heaven.
And where you are, my sweet, is forever my hell.
And it turns out to be Gabriel and Beelzebub. It's absolutely great. Despite only getting like 5 minutes of establishing their relationship, I love it so much, and especially if Gabriel is more like Jim now, I really want to see more of them. But going back to the scene of Gabriel and Beelzebub, the top dogs of heaven, hell, and Aziraphale and Crowley are in the room. And for Aziraphale and Crowley, who maybe at this point probably have feelings for each other, but just imagine for them, seeing not just any angel demon, but the higher-ups, the ones who berated them for not doing tasks or following heaven and hell's orders, being in love and decided to abandon heaven and hell so they can be together. You even see how shocked they both are. I couldn't even imagine probably how validating for them it was to see in that moment, to even see another angel and demon, both who have very powerful positions and roles, fall in love and run off together, leaving behind heaven and hell completely.
We don't need heaven, we don't need hell, they're toxic.
Crowley honestly couldn't be more explicit with how they feel. They use we so much, talking about them, whilst Aziraphale uses you and I, which separates them even more. Also, Crowley just straight up denounces hell as much as heaven. They don't have a side anymore, and honestly for a long time they haven't been on one. It's also through desperation again, trying to convince Aziraphale that both sides are as bad as each other and that they need Aziraphale to get out of that mindset. Aziraphale then finally kind of reacts by shaking their head. Again, this could mean many things, like they're disagreeing with what Crowley is saying, or they feel that Crowley isn't understanding them either, or that they're realising that Crowley is right and is shaking their head in disbelief, or knows that Crowley is right, or it's just a knee-jerk reaction to everything happening. Aziraphale is so much more of a complex character than I think a lot of people give them credit for, and every single one of his actions in the scene could mean a million different things, and again I think that is what is intended. Crowley then wants to hear Aziraphale's reaction.
We need to get away from them, just be an us. You and me, what do you say?
They say it in a very sharp and blunt tone, just wanting to get the point across because of their fear of rejection in the moment. I think Crowley is preparing themselves for anything. Aziraphale does respond, saying that Crowley should
come with me to heaven. I'll run it. You can be my second in command. We can make a difference.
They are on a similar wavelength, to be with each other as a pair and to be happy together. Except Crowley wants to be far away from heaven and hell, whilst Aziraphale wants to go right back to it and make a difference. Like I said, Aziraphale knows that heaven isn't perfect, but they're still so attached to heaven and still sees heaven as a part of their identity that they can't just let go of it. They both want to be with each other and be happy together, but their means and ways of doing it conflict with each other.
You can't leave this bookshop,
Crowley says in such a soft tone. We rarely see them get this serious and emotional, but the idea of Aziraphale not being in their bookshop is probably even more heartbreaking. It is their place. It's a place to talk, to hang out, to drink together, to do most things together. It's their place where no one else can touch them, and Crowley needs to make sure that Aziraphale understands that, but it's seemingly too late.
Oh, Crowley. Nothing lasts forever.
What do you mean nothing lasts forever? What are you referring to that doesn't last forever? What do you mean, Aziraphale? I don't understand. Are they saying that they and Crowley were never going to be friends or anything like that forever and it was bound to end? Because that seems to be what Crowley heard, which is why afterwards they just look like the most hurt and upset I've ever seen anyone ever look like someone just ripped out their heart. Everything Crowley was worried about, Aziraphale just confirmed. It's pretty bad for him. On the other hand, Aziraphale could just be referring to being in the bookshop and that eventually they would have moved on from that and found somewhere else. I really don't think Aziraphale was saying or had any intentions to say that them and Crowley's relationship was going to end at some point. But I still don't know why they said it, considering the reason why they didn't go along with Metro at first is because they liked it on Earth and especially at the bookshop. Crowley looks so broken.
No. No, I don't suppose it does.
Is them resigning back, literally masking themselves by putting the sunglasses back on.
Good luck.
Just stings. Good old passive aggressiveness towards Aziraphale, as at this point it's just fully given up on trying to convince Aziraphale not to go and stay with them. It's full of bitterness and spite, and frankly Crowley has every right to feel that way. Aziraphale is more confused than ever and still doesn't see Crowley's point of view and looks hurt when Crowley starts to leave as well. They're confused with a good luck and calls after Crowley for them to come back. This is when Aziraphale starts sounding desperate to get Crowley back.
Good luck. Crowley, come back to heaven. Work with me. We can be together. Angels.
Oh, how the turns tabled. Aziraphale tries to convince Crowley, saying that they can work together and be together still as angels, this time which to Aziraphale is the perfect solution. But it's the opposite for Crowley. Crowley does not want to be an angel at all.
Doing good. I need you.
Gets me every time. It's full of pleading and desperation. Aziraphale needs Crowley so bad and wants him to stay. It was never an option for Aziraphale that Crowley wouldn't be in the picture or wouldn't be with them. The only reason that Aziraphale even agreed to the Metatron's offer is that they knew that they would have an opportunity to work with Crowley. All of this to Aziraphale is for Crowley, but Aziraphale doesn't understand that it's the last thing Crowley wants.
I don't think you understand what I'm offering you.
I understand. I think I understand a whole lot better than you do.
And Crowley is right. But it's another thing to put a pin in and talk about later, as it's incredibly important. But they both understand different things that conflict and reject each other's ideals, which is why they both feel now that they can't be together. Which is wrong, because they could just talk about it and have better communication, but that's something they've never done before, so we'll take what we can get, I guess. Aziraphale looks so angry and sad in this situation. There's nothing more to say, meaning that they're basically confirming that they are done and might as well split up now. How come this season was a cute little whimsy adventure and a mystery of cute little romances and fun shenanigans with Jane Austen-esque balls, a trip up to Edinburgh, romantic scene with rain, which now ends on the most angsty, painful endings imaginable. This next bit destroys what little I have left of myself at this point. It refers back to the end of the first season, where after they stop the apocalypse and avoid being destroyed by heaven and hell by swapping bodies, they dine at the Ritz together, basically say how much they like each other, cheers to the world, and it fades out to Berkeley Square whilst the song A Nightingale Sang, which has the lyrics of a nightingale sang in Berkeley Square and about angels dining at the Ritz and falling in love. I mean, I don't know how more explicit that can be. So, saying...
Listen. Do you hear that?
I don't hear anything.
That's the point. No nightingales.
Suggests heartbreak and anguish and everything like that. I saw this post saying that nightingales sing when love is reciprocated, and when Crowley is basically saying no nightingales, they're basically saying that to them, Aziraphale does not love them back. It's definitely an obvious parallel to the final scene in the first series, where it is a happy ending and it's the closest in happiness they've ever been with each other. So Crowley saying no nightingales as well is just saying that if there was ever going to be something between them, that chance is now gone and there are now no nightingales singing. They've stopped. stopped. Also, the background music stops in the scene to enhance the silence in the room. It feels cold and empty now, not a place of peace or solitude where they can be together, but a room that will always represent what they could have been but never will. The background music comes back on, more somber but dramatic this time, as Crowley pleads one more time.
You idiot. We could have been us.
Which could either be insulting or endearing. We could have been us. We could have been something. An item, together forever, but to me you just ruined that by sticking with heaven and abandoning me. Aziraphale also just looks as hurt and angry, like Crowley is not even giving them a chance and is just leaving them as well. Aziraphale looks away, too emotional to face Crowley now. Okay, it's here. We're at this point. You know, any subpar to good show would have ended the disagreement here and let Crowley walk out whilst Aziraphale just stands there, probably crying. It would still be sad, but there would still be something missing, something not complete yet. But because this is Good Omens, because this is Aziraphale and Crowley and Neil Gaiman writing the show, it couldn't be left there because the show is too good to leave it there. That's not how the characters are. Throughout the season, we see how Crowley and Aziraphale think about how other humans fall in love. Aziraphale uses Jane Austen novels and thinks fancy balls and dances are the way to go, whilst Crowley seems to enjoy rom-coms and suggests getting humans to get in the rain and for them to kiss to be the most romantic. You see where I'm going, right? So, if Crowley had one last attempt to get Aziraphale on their side, one last attempt to show their love for Aziraphale, one last attempt to see where Aziraphale stands with them, what do you think Crowley does? You know what? I'm just going to play it. What the fuck? What the fuck is happening? They did it. They actually did it. They kiss. They actually kissed. I mean, granted, it doesn't go down well. It's not a sign of romance at all. More like the one last messy, desperate attempt to convince Aziraphale or tempting them with a kiss. It's uncomfortable and horrific and full of anguish. Basically, absolutely perfect for what it's supposed to be. The kiss is not supposed to be romantic or supposed to be the moment when it's clear to the audience that these two love each other. They have clearly loved each other for many centuries. Their love language isn't physical. It's through their little actions for one another, when they save each other or dine at the Ritz or drive in Crowley's Bentley or hang out at Aziraphale's bookshop. The kiss is one last effort from Crowley to try and convince Aziraphale not to go. Whilst there are some romantic intentions behind it, it's not supposed to be a romantic jest for them. Crowley knew that humans kiss as a romantic thing, so perhaps by doing it with Aziraphale, he would convince them to stay and not go to heaven. But because it's not part of their love language or relationship, it doesn't work romantically at all. Real question, does Aziraphale like the kiss? I have no idea, and again, I think we're supposed to not know at all either. It doesn't feel romantic, it feels desperate and not the way either of them wanted. Crowley steps back waiting for Aziraphale just to say anything. They know they've lost them, but Crowley just wants to see anything from Aziraphale. Probably knowing this will be the last time they see each other for a while, Aziraphale just stands there in shock and upset. Then, in a low, icy and bitter tone, all they say is,
I forgive you.
This line has haunted me ever since I first saw the scene, as I have just no idea how to read it. Is it, I forgive you for kissing me? I forgive you for falling in love with me. I forgive you for tempting me with a kiss. I forgive you for trying again. I forgive you for being a demon. I forgive you for doing this now when we weren't ready instead of waiting. I forgive you for our awful first ? Kiss. I forgive you for not going with me. I forgive you for not seeing my side to this. I forgive you as that's just my default response as an angel. I forgive you as that's the only thing I can say or do or think of right now. I forgive you for breaking my heart because deep down I know you wouldn't go along with this. I forgive you for not going along with heaven as I know that's something you never wanted. I forgive you, meaning myself, for hurting you as well. I forgive you, meaning myself, for realising I have just messed up. Yeah, there's a lot this can mean and it still puzzles me to this day. And then Crowley twists the knife in further by responding,
Don't bother.
basically saying that they don't want to be forgiven. Not by Aziraphale, not by heaven, not by anyone. And then Crowley leaves, and it's over. Aziraphale just stands there, giving a whole range of emotions that I just can't read either. They shudder, then they put their fingers on their lips. It's a delicate touch, like when you're touching a fresh, open wound. I don't know whether Aziraphale is still shocked or unnerved by the kiss, or if they realise that they've made a massive mistake by letting Crowley leave, and that they liked the kiss as well. The doors then open with the Metatron entering. The fact that he came so quickly after Crowley Crowley left suggests that they were watching the entire time, which is suspicious. The way Aziraphale also turns around, looking excited, thinking Crowley had maybe returned, makes my heart break even more. Realising it's not Crowley, they turn away to presumably wipe away their tears and gather themselves together. The Metatron then asks how Crowley took it.
How did he take it?
Which at first I thought nothing of, but then I realised that it's very weird. Instead of asking if Crowley said yes or no, the Metatron seems to almost knew that Crowley was going to say no. Again, put a pin in that because we'll talk about the Metatron's motivations later.
Not well.
Aziraphale goes back to his smiley kind of front, saying that Crowley just didn't take it well, and the Metatron then jeering,
Well, always did want to go his own way. Always asking damn fool questions too, right?
I think Aziraphale doesn't think too much about what the Metatron is saying here, as they're just trying to compose themselves after what happened. When the Metatron asks Aziraphale if they're ready to start, Aziraphale doesn't answer straight away, or really at all.
Ready to start?
But, my bookshop.
They stutter, almost nervous to answer, as they're about to say no or change their mind. Instead, Aziraphale just asks about the bookshop and who will look after it when they're gone, which thank God is entrusted to Muriel. Aziraphale then looks out the window again to look for Crowley, wishing they would come back at this point. And I think Aziraphale definitely has second thoughts about going. But then Aziraphale just resumes back to his usual angel self.
I think nothing at all.
As they walk out of the bookshop, which, who knows, they might not see for a long time. Crowley is outside leaning against their Bentley. Crowley probably didn't want to go just yet, just in case Aziraphale did change their mind, but alas, that hasn't happened. Crowley watches from afar as the Metatron talks about the next big plan for heaven with Aziraphale.
Well, it's something we need an angel of your talents to direct. An angel who is familiar with how they do things on Earth. We call it the Second Coming.
The music drops into a little of the Good Omens themes as Aziraphale's face drops as well. It's interesting that the Metatron didn't reveal what the real plans were for heaven until they knew that Aziraphale was definitely doing the job. This is one of my favourite moments, as I think everything comes into place for Aziraphale, and now that they understand what Crowley meant and they realise there's no turning back now. Aziraphale looks back at Crowley for one last time, who knows for how long. Despite everything that happened between them, I'd like to think that no matter what, they will still be there for each other. Aziraphale now knows what to do and what to expect from heaven. Crowley watches as Aziraphale leaves to go to heaven. They look over at Give Me Coffee or Give Me Death, where Nina gives him a wave. Crowley gets back into the car, and when they turn it on, the radio comes on with the Nightingale sang.
A nightingale sang, Berkeley Square.
Whether they had it prepared, or the car itself playing the song thinking it would cheer Crowley up, clearly it doesn't help. They drive away from the bookshop slowly, maybe even thinking that Aziraphale will change their mind one last time. The camera shot focuses on Crowley, but then transitions into a split screen, showing both Crowley and Aziraphale's faces as they leave each other. Crowley's face is giving nothing away. They're just sad. That's really it. Whilst Aziraphale is going through the many stages of emotions, they're definitely preparing themselves for heaven, but also everything the Metatron just said about the second coming. Aziraphale looks very scared and nervous, especially with that seemingly forced smile. But I think it can also be seen as determination of themselves, maybe having a plan on what's to come, or just mentally preparing themselves for this new position. As both of them blur out to only focus on the credits, the second season of Good Omens comes to an end. Okay, that was a lot, so consider this a good time to stop and have a break. My voice is killing me right now. Maybe get a hot drink or walk around because baby, we are not done yet. Overall, my actual feelings towards the scene is that it's absolutely amazing. Despite it being incredibly angsty and sad, it was amazingly written and structured. Not only that, but it's perfect for the characters' development. Splitting them up to be on their own will greatly add to their characters and make them realise more about themselves. Probably that they need each other more than they think. Also think of the end of season 2 as like the kind of middle of the story when the bad things happen and that causes problems for the characters, this time it being the characters having an argument and splitting up. It's a very simplistic way of viewing it, but if there's an eventual season 3, it would be interesting and probably pretty good to start the third and final season where the stakes will be at the highest. Also, ending it the same way as season 1, with it being a happy ending, would be way too repetitive and kind of boring, so switching things up was probably the best idea. Basically, I love this scene for how it's written, with the dialogue being so poignant yet so ambiguous, and all the characters not giving too much away so we really don't know their true feelings or intentions. Season 2 is acting as a bridge between season 1 and season 3, and Neil Gaiman has said that he and Terry Pratchett had planned in the 2000s a sequel to the book, which will probably be the foundation for season 3. So season 2 ending like that just makes the idea of a supposed season 3 a lot more interesting. After going through all of that, now I want to go through some points / ideas / maybe theories that add some context to the scene, which makes me understand it more and just makes it make sense to me. Okay, first point is, Aziraphale is not out of character, and this is something he would do. I just want to get it out of the way first because as when I was looking at Good Omens content online, I saw a lot of people's first reactions to the end of the season was that Aziraphale was acting out of character or he wasn't himself. I fully disagree. I think a lot of people just didn't like what Aziraphale did, understandably so, but chalked it up to him being out of character rather than just not liking what they did. Not liking what Aziraphale did doesn't mean you don't like them as a character. What's great about Aziraphale is that they are very complex, and sometimes they seem to swing one way and then do something that contradicts other things they've done. Whilst I wish Aziraphale didn't do or say some of the things they did, what they also did makes the story more interesting and does make sense with their character if you look at the details, which we'll go through now, and his past in general. Here now is a compilation of arguments Aziraphale and Crowley have had, where they have disagreed in the same way as this argument, and Aziraphale has also said, "I forgive you."
Great plan, Crowley.
Yeah, for the record, great pustulant mangled bollocks to the great blasted plan!
May you be forgiven.
I won't be forgiven. Not ever. Part of a demon's job description. Unforgivable, that's what I am. Someone does. I'm not personally out for killing kids.
You're the demon, I'm the nice one. I don't have to kill children.
This is ridiculous. You are ridiculous. I don't even know why I'm still talking to you.
Well, frankly, neither do I.
Enough, I'm leaving.
You can't leave, Crowley. There isn't anywhere to go.
Even if this all ends up in a puddle of burning goo, we can go off together. How long have we been friends? 6,000 years.
Friends, we're not friends. We are an angel and a demon. We have nothing whatsoever in common. I don't even like you.
You do.
We're on opposite sides.
We're on our side.
There is no our side, Crowley.
Angel! Forces of hell, I've figured out it was my fault. But we can run away together. Alpha Centauri.
Crowley, you're being ridiculous. Look, I'm quite sure if I can just reach the right people, then I can get all this sorted out.
There aren't any right people. There's just God. You're so clever. How can somebody as clever as you be so stupid?
I forgive you.
Number 2, Crowley knows more about heaven than Aziraphale, especially how nasty they are. One thing I've noticed that people talking about not liking Aziraphale's decision to go back to heaven is that they say that they should have known better about heaven with how they treated Aziraphale when they wanted to destroy them in the fire, and why they kicked out Gabriel, and what they would do to Aziraphale if they found out that they had Gabriel. The thing is, we never see Aziraphale get to know these things at all.
I am authorized to remove the name of anyone who helped Gabriel from the Book of Life. You will never have existed, Aziraphale.
They weren't there when they were being destroyed because it was Crowley disguised as them, and I don't think Crowley ever told Aziraphale about it, and Aziraphale is never there when we find out what happens to Gabriel in the trial and what will happen to Aziraphale if they're found with Gabriel. Do you know who does know? Crowley knows. Crowley knows how nasty heaven is more than Aziraphale knows, which is why they're so protective over Aziraphale and is aggressive towards Gabriel this season. So now going into the last scene with that knowledge, no wonder Crowley is trying their hardest to convince Aziraphale not to go, because they know more than Aziraphale on how dangerous heaven is. Anytime Aziraphale challenges or wants to make a difference in heaven, which Aziraphale explicitly says they want to do, Aziraphale could be thrown out, become a fallen angel like Crowley, lose his memories, so completely forget everything him and Crowley had. That's what Aziraphale doesn't know, and that's why they don't understand why Crowley not only rejects Aziraphale's offer to work in heaven, but is confused on why Crowley is so against heaven in general as a good force. Crowley knows Aziraphale doesn't, miscommunication happens, blah 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 blah, you get the point. That's another reason why Aziraphale acts the way they do. Next one is that both want the best for each other, but their ideals and morals still clash, that when they talk to each other in the scene, it feels like they're rejecting one another when their intentions are the opposite. This basically means that the intention of both in the scene is to make the other happy and for them to be safe together. The methods and way each of them wants to do that conflicts with the other and feels like rejection to the other. For Crowley, Aziraphale is basically saying that Crowley will never be good enough for them if they are a demon, and that Aziraphale believes that demons are incapable of love, and that's why Aziraphale will only accept/love Crowley if they join Aziraphale in heaven. Obviously, this is not what Aziraphale's intention is and not how they feel at all, but that's what it feels like to Crowley. Whilst for Aziraphale, Crowley's rejection of their idea and calling heaven toxic as hell, and that everything Aziraphale has been working towards has been a waste of time or for nothing. Both of them hear rejection from the other, even if it's never the intention of the other. Like I said, good old miscommunication. What the fuck is Metatron's plan? I 100% think that the Metatron has some ulterior motives in the last scene, which I think is completely separate to Aziraphale and Crowley. If the next big plan for heaven is the second coming, the best thing to do is split up the two beings who stopped the first Armageddon in the first place, having one right under your nose to control them and the other one completely out of the picture. Extra points you can get them to leave on the wrong terms. So I think the Metatron had a plan going to scene to split up the two, and the Metatron did this by entering the shop, telling off Archangel Michael, Uriel, Seracriel in front of Aziraphale, and then asking to talk to Aziraphale whilst also talking about how he likes to drink coffee, aka likes to consume human goods like Aziraphale, which is something Aziraphale used to get berated doing by other angels. This would instantly make Aziraphale feel seen and appreciated by heaven, and that everything they had been doing on Earth for the past millennia and centuries was a good job, validating everything Aziraphale had done. That then means that the Metatron now has Aziraphale on their side, and all he needs to do is offer Aziraphale the job. Then Aziraphale goes back to the bookshop to tell Crowley about the so-called good news, even though the Metatron knows that Crowley will probably never say yes to it. And knowing how loyal Aziraphale is to the higher-ups of heaven and how stubborn they are, of course Aziraphale isn't going to let go of this chance. So everything that goes according to the Metatron's plan, if he had this plan. The two disagree and go their separate ways, which is why instead of asking what did he say when entering the bookshop to Aziraphale, he asks how did he take it, implying that he knew that Crowley wouldn't take it well, but he wanted to know how upset Crowley would be. Now that he has Aziraphale in the palm of his hands, that's when he tells Aziraphale about the second coming, as it's safe to do now that Aziraphale is 100% on board with the job. The Metatron's scheme had worked, if they had a scheme in the first place. This is more of a theory. The Metatron is 100% scared of Aziraphale and Crowley's power together, and you see that look that he gives Crowley. Yeah, he's evil, man. There's this really good video about the Metatron and the miracle Crowley and Aziraphale formed together, basically saying that the Metatron only becomes interested in them when they create that miracle to stop from people from recognising Gabriel. Aziraphale and Crowley already being high up angels, and Aziraphale about to be an even higher up angel. The amount of power they would have together would probably be overpowering heaven and hell together. So obviously the Metatron is probably terrified of them being together, so obviously they would find any sort of way to separate them. The implications of the very, very last scene. Now, this is incredibly important because it's basically giving us the most information on what could happen in season 3, which is that the second coming will happen, or at least be put into motion. And with that, we need to talk about Aziraphale's reaction to Metatron saying it and their face when they're in the elevator. Aziraphale is clearly taken aback when Metatron says they're planning for second coming. I really don't think they were expecting it at all, and their face says, oh shit, what the fuck have I gotten myself into? In the elevator, Aziraphale goes through a whole range of emotions. The main thing I want to point out is a smile at the end. What does it mean? It seems kind of unnerving and the most uncomfortable, but it also makes me feel reassured at the same time. Either that Aziraphale is forcing the hell out of that smile to try and disguise their fear about the second coming and realise that they've made a massive mistake by doing this, and realising that they've made a massive mistake by agreeing to this, or that whilst they've still realised that they're in deep shit with helping the second coming, they're also right in the heart of the storm, meaning they could stop it or at least change a few things around. I think the many emotions we see Aziraphale go through could be them forming a plan in their mind about what to do, and the smile at the end is reassurance. They have a plan on how to stop it, and they're feeling confident about doing it. Whilst them and Crowley have just left each other on bad terms, inevitably there's no way they'll never talk again or never be on good terms again. Their trust and relationship, whilst it has taken a hit, it's not broken. And Aziraphale feels that they will always be able to rely on Crowley no matter what. They will always have each other. Aziraphale is a lot more clever and intelligent than I think a lot of people give them credit for. I think that's because a lot of the time we see their emotions or stubbornness get the best of them, but Aziraphale is intelligent and doesn't do things unless they definitely feel confident with it. Aziraphale says to Crowley that they can make a difference in heaven, and I still believe that Aziraphale feels that way. Whilst they are wrapped around heaven's finger, they know enough to be wary, and that if they are in a position of higher power, they can keep Crowley safe too, which above anything is the most important to Aziraphale. The reason Aziraphale said yes to the job in the first place was for them and Crowley to be safe together. Honestly, I don't know if half of these make sense, but I needed to just get them out and type them and read them out as points because it helps me understand the scene more and what it means for the characters, and I guess how I read it in the end. But yeah, I hope that helps you as well. I've picked out a couple theories that are floating around right now that try to explain the last scene or the season as a whole, and I would like to give my thoughts about them. Whether I like or dislike these theories, they are backed up with evidence and are valid in their own right, and mad respect to anyone who creates any of these theories and want to share them. The coffee theory. Okay, here we go. I don't like theories that basically undermine the last scene and the emotional character journey and development Aziraphale and Crowley go on, as it renders the scene for nothing and means the characters don't get to grow or develop, and only outside sources can make their characters do interesting stuff. This is one of them. The coffee theory states that the Metatron put something in the coffee that he gave to Aziraphale, which basically manipulated or poisoned Aziraphale to make the decision to go to heaven and leave Crowley behind, which is why they acted so off in the bookshop scene with Crowley. Evidence being that you could apparently hear miracle sounds when Aziraphale drinks the coffee and when the Metatron is just there. And when they do, they change their mind about the job offer and take it.
Large oat milk latte with a dash of almond syrup. Please.
It's an oat milk latte with a hefty jigger of almond syrup.
First thing is that I don't hear any miracle sounds at all.
Of course. I've ingested things in my time, you know.
And that the almond syrup thing is more of a coincidence because the Metatron just might just not understand how some coffee is made. This theory for me just feels like a quick reaction to explain why Aziraphale's actions didn't feel like them or out of character, and it's a quick and easy fix. Thing is, for me, like I said, Aziraphale wasn't out of character at all, and this would completely undo such an important character moment for them. The emotional weight and importance of the scene would mean nothing, as Aziraphale wasn't even in their right mind at all, and makes season 3 less interesting, as it's all, oh look, Aziraphale was just poisoned and now he's just back to normal, now they can be together and it's alright. It feels like a dream theory, with it not being real or true for a character, therefore doesn't matter and can be easily solved. It's a great premise for a fix-it fic, and I understand that it kind of feels like a quick fix for people who want it a different way, but for me, I just kind of think this theory shits on Aziraphale's character and makes his character development non-existent, and makes an eventual season 3 less interesting for me, if that's the case. The body swap theory. This one is a bit more interesting, but again, it feels like it undermines the scene and the characters because it was staged and they knew it was meant to happen. It suggests that Aziraphale and Crowley body swapped at some point between the Metatron meeting and the bookshop scene. But I think using the same trick twice at the end of the season is just kind of air. It worked the first time in season 1 as no one expected it, and also it worked for what was happening to them. But now, because we know they can do it, it just makes it too obvious and less interesting. It's a bit of a cop-out, so it's not as exciting. One thing I did see someone say, it was actually Aziraphale and Muriel who swapped bodies. It is interesting and fun to think about, and again, a great idea for another fix-it fic. But if you really think about it, it doesn't work either. First of all, I don't think Muriel even has the powers to body swap, or we don't see them say anything about it. But really, Muriel does not know Aziraphale as much as Crowley knows Aziraphale to understand how Aziraphale would act in any of these scenes. I also just don't think that bookshop scene would have happened that way if it was actually Muriel as Aziraphale. I also don't think Crowley would confess to Aziraphale if they knew it was Muriel disguised as Aziraphale, unless they didn't know, but then that makes it even weirder because then they would just be kissing Muriel, not Aziraphale, and that just seems wrong. Whilst it's a cute idea, it just doesn't work for me either. The lie theory. Now, this is one I can kind of get behind. Basically, this kind of entails that Aziraphale actually lied to Crowley and to the audience as well, that they wanted to go back to heaven and it was their decision, as what we didn't see is that between the meeting with the Metatron and Aziraphale, the Metatron actually threatened Aziraphale, or threatened Crowley's life as well, if Aziraphale didn't go back to heaven and became Supreme Archangel. We also see Aziraphale go on a journey about lying, with the story with Job, as well as lying to Nina and Maggie and lying to Heaven. Aziraphale would lie to Crowley to protect them from the Metatron in Heaven. If they could push Crowley away, then Crowley would be safe. It's a bit cliche being there, push them away so they won't be harmed, and it does undermine the bookshop scene's emotions and weight as Aziraphale had it planned. Also, you can argue that Aziraphale didn't see Crowley's love confession coming at all, so that also shocked them, making their reactions of I forgive you and other parts actually real and not staged at all, as they didn't see it coming, which hurts but also helps their planning even more, meaning they can go to Heaven scared but sure that Crowley is safe. The magic trick you didn't see. There's a whole Google document on this which you can read, which I highly recommend. It's a good read and it's set up well, and it does bring some interesting points, but the whole premise and argument around it, plus how it's written, I am not a personal fan of. But like I said, read it for yourself and make your own judgment from there. Also, side note, I also don't think Maggie is a puppet of the Metatron, nor is she a demon. Just because she can be awkward sometimes and act weirdly does not make her any less human. Don't know why people think that. Most of the time we see Maggie is her interacting with her crush, so of course she'll be more awkward because that's what some humans are like. I just think there's not any ulterior motives with Maggie. Crowley's angel name and being an archangel. So this section was originally me talking about how there's a lot of evidence suggesting that Crowley was a higher up angel before he became a demon, and specifically going into maybe what his angel name was. So I was talking about how Aziraphale, when they become the supreme archangel, might become Raphael, because if you take off Azzy, Raphael is like a 2-letter switch from becoming Raphael, stuff like that. I don't like that anymore, just because I've seen discussions and agree with the fact that it's kind of finding just like Crowley's older name just feels weird and wouldn't fit their character. And also I think in season 3 it is very likely that we will probably go into Crowley's past as an angel, as I think that his powers or his knowledge from that will probably help in season 3. I just kind of looking back now and editing this, I kind of just don't really like the theory now. There are so many more amazing theories out there, but these are kind of the big ones going around right now that I wanted to talk about. Whether I like them or not, they are all valid in their own right, and I respect that people have their own readings and interpretations of a show that we all enjoy and liked. So with all this rambling, ranting and desperation, did I actually make any points? I guess so. I think what I'm trying to say is that despite the ending being heartbreaking and devastating, it was important that both Aziraphale and Crowley go through it for their own character development and journey. In terms of the story, it's the cliche bad thing that happens causing the main character split up, so the last act, season 3, can be more dramatic and up stakes. It makes the ambiguity of how they will make up, if they do, more interesting as well. But I'm going to put my points into bullet points because it's easier. The Metatron knew that to convince Aziraphale to become Archangel and separate them from Crowley, as those two together are a threat to Heaven's plans, he needs to affirm Aziraphale's actions as an angel over the other angels to make them feel valid and accepted in Heaven. Then Aziraphale will be pretty much on board with everything the Metatron asks them. Aziraphale at first rejects the offer from the Metatron until the Metatron says Crowley can join them and become an angel again. The reason why Aziraphale said yes was that they believe that Crowley would be safe and happy again with Aziraphale. Crowley is their priority, and they are doing this for the benefit of Crowley, even if it goes against everything Crowley actually wants. Crowley knows more about how toxic and nasty Heaven is way more than Aziraphale does. That is important to remember, as it's why Crowley is so much more against Heaven than Aziraphale is, and is shocked to see how Aziraphale is giving Heaven another chance, because Crowley knows what they could do to Aziraphale, but Aziraphale doesn't know. What they think is best for each other conflicts with the ideas, wants and needs for each other. Therefore it feels like they are rejecting each other. Mix it in with emotions and romance, then it stings 10 times harder. The kiss is not romantic, but it does have romantic intentions behind it. Crowley uses it as one last act, maybe a temptation to convince Aziraphale, but it doesn't really work, as that's not their love language. Their love language is not really physical at all, and that's fine. So I'm not too sure when both of them realise that they loved each other and realise that they should say something. I forgive you is the best worst line, as it could mean anything. Aziraphale is sure on what they're doing up until the Metatron says the second coming. Aziraphale realises they're in deep shit when they realise they'll have to help with the second coming, and the smile at the end is either forced or that Aziraphale has worked out a plan and is feeling confident again. I don't really know, but what I do know is that Aziraphale is smart and that I trust him. Does that make any sense? I hope it does, and I hope you got something new out of this and maybe seen this scene or the whole season in a different way. Of course, with me taking like 3 months to edit this video, there's been quite a lot of updates. in the meantime about Good Omens and the possibility of a season 3. The main thing being that it's been confirmed that Amazon have greenlit Neil to start writing the scripts for season 3, but it doesn't mean the whole season's been greenlit and will go ahead yet, but it is a good sign. In other news, Douglas McKinnon, who was the director for both season 1 and season 2, will not be returning for season 3. I don't want to speculate why or why not or whatever, because that's not necessary. I don't know if it will change in the future or not, but that's that. And that a crew member did like an interview like a month ago or something about the end of the last episode, and someone asked him, what did you think Aziraphale was thinking after Crowley had kissed them, and they said do it again. Do with that information what you think. It's a lot. Of course, none of this really suggests if there's going to be a season 3 or not. I still think there is a very high chance it will be. I mean, when Good Omens season 2 aired, it was in the top 10 for many countries for more than a month. It was very popular on like all the polls that Amazon Prime put out and was trending a lot everywhere. It was a show that was very beloved and adored and talked about by a lot of people. And also new fans like me coming on board, it'd be kind of silly for Prime not to renew it. This season was enjoyable from beginning to end. Amazing writing, acting, sets, moments, comedy and heartbreak. This is a full package. Getting into this show has been one of the greatest joys ever, and I thoroughly loved every part of it. And most importantly, we wouldn't have any of this if it wasn't for the brilliant writers and actors and everyone working on the show. They are the people who bring some of the best art and media alive, and the fact that they are being treated like shit from all these big money hoarding companies who can't be bothered to pay their workers, it's insane how the writers and actors are being treated, and standing and supporting them during the strikes is the best thing we can do right now. I would love to have a season 3 of Good Omens because that's how the story should end. We need to see it complete, but only if the people on and off camera are being treated correctly and being paid the right amount. If there's anything to take away from this video, this is it.